Someday
Okay.
we'll be able to play that intro without it messing up.
You know what? It's because that thing reacts later than I actually, like, when I press it, it takes about 2 seconds for it to react. So then I panic and I turn it off and then I turn it on again. So anyway, that's how it all happens. But anyway, hello everyone. I can see that there's a lot of you already. It's like you're excited for our special guest.
Yeah, so like, let's not beat around the bush. Let's bring everyone in, because obviously they're not here for it at all.
Yeah.
So we have got
Hi.
Fatma, Nando, Tiff, and the lady we're all waiting for, Miss Deborah Snyder. Oh, you're wearing your Snyder's Amazon shirt.
Oh my God, this is amazing. Cool. I just noticed. Oh my God.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you guys got it, because we didn't know if you've got the package actually.
I was gonna surprise you. I was gonna thank you, but then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna wear it. So.
Oh my God, this is amazing. You look amazing.
Yeah. They're thinking about me and sending it to me. I really love it.
Yeah, it was, we were putting it together. The original idea was to send you guys a package, like, as a thank you for JusticeCon, but then we had to wait on stuff, and so it kind of came for Christmas, but glad that it arrived.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. We're getting close.
Yes.
So thank you for coming with us.
Yes, thank you for spending time with us and with the fans. It's such a rare thing, and we feel like the luckiest fans in the world.
Yeah. If you can see, this is ACS. His wife is the one who made the shirt for us.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
We will always shout out Brooke when we can. She makes shirts for like everything. So Amanda, you were gonna say something on the tip of your tongue before we went live. So what was that?
I mean, hi, my name's Amanda, and you're amazing. I don't know how to. I am so like utterly impressed with everything that you're doing, and I'm such a big fan. And like, where do I sign up for like the Deb Snyder Patreon to like keep this mission going? It's Women's History Month, and you want more women in this industry. So I guess, how did you get here, and how can other women get here where you are?
Yeah, I mean, I never imagined being here. I grew up in New Jersey. I was the first one in my family to go to college. My dad was an iron worker. My mom, it was really important for her to be home with us when we were younger. And then she worked as an office assistant and in several jobs, but like really she was there, for us, and wanted to make sure that, we had parents that were, really present. So to me, like Hollywood, I had never even been to California until after I graduated college. I went to school in upstate New York to Ithaca College. And at the time when I went to school, I thought I was going to be a reporter. I really wanted to like be a news reporter. And then I got there and I was like, I don't like reading off the teleprompt. Like it wasn't my thing. I wasn't very comfortable with it. But what I really fell in love with was producing, like making it happen. And they had this ICB TV, and it was like all these TV shows that were for the community, but they were produced by the college. But it gave me like a lot of like, you got to like shoot some packages of some news interviews. And then, there was a lot of things to do. And I really like, I fell in love with that planning and preparation and like being behind the scenes, getting it all done. And I also, I had a friend and her dad worked in advertising at this ad agency called DDB Needham. And it was like a really big ad agency in New York. And he said, well, why don't you come for the summer and you can get an internship in the production department? and see if, if you like production, this is like telling these little stories. So it was really great. I would ride in, we were about 15 minutes on the train, and I would ride in every day on the train. And I remember they gave you like $7 for lunch. That's what you got. And I just learned, and I really fell in love with telling these mini stories. And I got to see, at the time, it wasn't a lot of streaming and cable. So it was really network, and commercials were huge. So there was a lot of money, and even radio spots. And I got to just see all aspects of that. And I said, this was something that was tangible for me. And I was just like, that's what I'm going to do. And then you might have heard me tell the story. I graduate college, and they're like, well, you need to take a typing test. And I did not know how to type at all. So I was like, fail these typing tests. Like no recruiter would take me. It was like crazy. I finally got a job as a receptionist at an ad agency. But I just wanted to, I would see the assistants running around, and I wanted to so be an assistant, except for my bad typing skills. So I got the opportunity. There was an opening to work for 5 producers at this agency, Bakersfield Vogel Bates, which is not there any longer. And I went to human resources, and luckily the woman had a meeting, so she didn't get to grade my typing test. And I got to go up and meet the head of production. I was like, listen, I know I failed my typing test, but I really want this job. And he was like, I really don't care about your typing test. Like, yes, you might have to do like forms, but it wasn't about how fast. He goes, there's so much more that I want, from you. And as long as you can type some things, it doesn't have to be like so many words a minute. And that was my first job in, really in production. And I worked for a couple really senior level producers and an assistant producer. And I just did whatever they wanted me to do. I was, whether it was getting their coffee or getting their laundry, or I got to call in directors' reels, and they would ask me for things. And I would, as I was calling in the directors' reels, I started being able to watch them and know the talent that was out there, and observe whenever I could. If they were shooting in New York, I would try and ask them if I could come to set. And I kind of worked my way up that way, in advertising. I worked as an editor. At the time, it wasn't like Avid editing. It was very linear with 3/4 inch tapes and everything. So I'm dating myself, but and I did that for a while, doing presentations. And we would go, I worked for Pizza Hut, and we would do focus groups about people eating pizza, and I'd cut the videos and things like that. And then I slowly started to get bigger and bigger jobs. And I kind of I love doing that. And Hollywood still seems so far away, for me. And then I did this in 1996. I did this Lady Foot Locker Reebok commercial for the Olympics, and it was a celebration of women. And that's when I started to get this niche where they would put me on all the women's brands. I worked on Estee Lauder, and I did some fashion campaigns for Tommy Hilfiger. But the Lady Foot Locker campaign was really great because it was a celebration. It was always celebrating women athletes. And that's how I met Zach, actually. And
so you guys met in advertising.
We met in advertising.
Met specifically doing something about celebrating women, just to point that out.
I was in a long-time relationship. He was married at the time, and we just did this job, but I thought he was enormously, I have pictures from it too, which is crazy, from I thought he was enormously talented. And then our paths didn't cross till 2003, years later. And
wow.
And we ended up in New Zealand doing a soft and dry deodorant commercial. And I love soft and dry now. That's all the deodorant. It's, it's near and dear to my heart.
They should give you guys a lifetime supply of soft and dry.
They good. But New Zealand is like a magical place. And at the time advertising, they were spending a lot of money. It was a global campaign. So we were there for like 3 weeks in New Zealand. And we were fly fishing and wine tasting. Besides working, we were working very hard. One thing led to another. And he lived though in California, and I lived in my rent controlled apartment that I was never going to give up in New York City because, you know, it took me a while to get that place. And we left and went back our separate ways. And actually, when I got home, there was a message waiting for me from him. And then he just at Dawn of the Dead, which shot in Toronto, which is very close to New York. So the whole time we would see each other every weekend. And then we got, like 9 months later, we got engaged. And then I gave up my apartment and moved out to California. But I still thought I would work in advertising. And he's still like, you know, you just because you do one movie doesn't mean you're going to keep going on and doing more necessarily right away. Especially when you make your, you know, when you make your first movie, you know, it depends. And luckily that movie did really well, Dawn of the Dead. And, but he really wanted to get this movie made 300. And before Dawn of the Dead, he was trying to get it made. So when I came out there, I was like, well, we need to pitch this like we would do for an ad campaign. And that's what we did. So there were other producers, my lovely producing partners, Gianni Nunari, Mark Canton, and Bernie Goldman. But like we were on the ground, like, you know, we were used to selling things. And I think so much a part of your job, like as a producer, as a director, is selling your ideas and convincing someone to give you money to make this thing, or convincing someone that this is the right story, or convincing someone, an actor, that they want to, you know, it is a lot about how you tell that story. So we did what we kind of, where we came from, our history, and we put together this big pitch. We had a book and we were out there and like, you know, we still do it when we do our pitches. We're like spray mounting, and it's not like there's like a whole machine around us because we do kind of tend to keep it small. Our company is small, and we're really hands-on with all of that. And we got 300, Warner Brothers was interested in the idea, but they were still like, well, you know, we have this movie Troy with Brad Pitt. Like, who do you have? And we're like, well, we have this comic book, this graphic novel. I don't know what that means. So we said, well, will you give us some money so we can do a test? And we also built maquettes. We had these statues of the characters with their clothing, of how we were going to do it. And we laid out this whole presentation. And I still don't think they kept, I remember Alan Horn, who I love, was the head of the studio at the time. And he was like, is this animated? And we're like, well, kind of animated still. But they had faith and they thought it was something unique and different. So all of a sudden I found myself as an executive producer on this pretty big movie that no one really wanted to make. Like everyone forgets that because they see the success of what it was and how big it was. But for us, it was hard to get made. And, you know, even if it's a bigger budget, it seems like you never have, when you're doing a period piece and you have lots of costumes and the way we were doing it with the CG, you know, there's never enough money, it seems, even it sounds crazy, but it felt like a movie that no one had the largest expectations for until it actually came out. So we couldn't believe it. I mean, it was so much fun to be able to do that. And in the process of making it, Warner said, well, do you want to come on the lot and do you want to produce for us and like have a deal with us? And we were just, I was like, oh my goodness, this is like, and it happened so organically. Like, it wasn't like, you know, Zach and I, like, here's my, you know, wife and you have to work with her. And like, it just like, we were in there doing it and one thing kind of led to another. And it just such a smooth process in that trajectory. Now, to say it's smooth, I mean, every time you're pitching something, it's always, there's challenges and everything. But I think that transition to us like starting our company, I guess maybe smooth isn't the word, but organic. It felt very organic.
Yeah. So
It all happened.
the thing that was really funny when you talk about how 300 was really hard to make and like you had to like fight for it to be made, years and years later when you look at the studio exec roundtable, that I think it was Vanity Fair or is it Hollywood Reporter that does it, I can't remember which, but when they were doing it, I remember the man that was in charge of Netflix and the man that's in charge of Universal, I believe, they both said when the reporter asked and he said, which movie do you regret saying no to? And that is the movie that they regretted saying no to. So I guess, like, you know, it just goes to show how things turn around. And on top of that, when you see that now Zach's working with Netflix, well, you guys are working with Netflix with Army of the Dead, which is a project that we're all so excited about. It's so amazing to see that coming full circle and having, you know, Netflix working with you guys again after they said no to 300, and it's just so amazing to see how it's turned around. So thankful for everything.
Well, what's interesting about that is after Zach did Dawn of the Dead, he had this idea, because, you know, he was in the zombie mind frame, I guess, but, you know, well, what if, like, you know, the fun thing about those movies are that, like, the genre bending and genre aware, and he was like, what if it was, like, heist and, like, zombie movie? And what if, like, Vegas, like, if we're at a mall and if we're commenting on consumerism, mass consumerism, we have a lot of commentary about Vegas. So what, like, how fun would it be to set something in Vegas and then to mash up these, you know, these two genres? So, but at the time he was like, I can't go and do another zombie movie. So we actually, we hired this writer, Joby Harold, who's really talented and wrote this script that was great. And we hired a director. But I remember at the time, it was costing too much, but yet it was at a time where World War Z was out. That had giant spectacle. And our movie was like a little too expensive and didn't deliver when it was originally, you know, conceived. It didn't quite deliver on that level, but yet it wasn't like, when you look at like, okay, you know, if Dawn was like a $20 million movie, if this is going to be somewhere, you know, getting closer to 100, but yet it doesn't really it can't compete against these other big movies. We didn't feel like it was the right time, and we actually pulled the plug. We had Legendary was going to finance it with Warner Brothers, but I was like, you know what, we think that the movie's not here, neither here nor there right now. And we said, you know, let's just put a pin in it. And at the time we were going to go and do Watchmen, so we also got a little bit busy doing that. And then after we were going to come back and we were like,
a little bit busy.
A little.
A little. And then Zach said, well, listen, I just want to make the movie mine now. So he worked with Shay Hatton. You know, it's based off the original treatment and has some, you know, has the characters that Joby had written from Zach's original treatment, but they kind of sat down. Because Zach's like, you know, whenever I make something, I kind of change things. Like it wasn't, I was developing it to be a producer, not to be a director. And the funny thing is Scott Stuber, who's the head of Netflix, was Zach's executive on Dawn of the Dead. So it really does have these, you know.
Yeah.
So they had it close.
Yeah.
Well, we are super excited for Army of the Dead and like all of the spin-offs that, you know, have been announced that are supposed to come out. Like when they announced it, like, yes, we're getting another whole universe from you guys.
Yes.
So,
I feel like we just learned Deb is unstoppable. Zach is also unstoppable and a crazy nerd, a madman, I believe he's been called. And the two of you together are just like steamrolling over the entertainment world in the most delightful way. I appreciate being steamrolled like this.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say about that. You know what? It's a really great, I mean, I think we complement each other in so many ways. And I think, you know, we have such different roles that we fill, but I think to come together and have a common goal. And I think also in this industry, because you're traveling so much, you're on the road. I always say it's like we are this traveling circus. You know, it's really hard on relationships, because if you spend a year in England, which sounds really great, but if your significant other, you know, is coming along with you and you're working 14 hours a day with this whole group that you're not really a part of, like, what do you do for all that time? You know, or you choose to stay home and then you're away from each other, you know, for extended periods of time. Whereas and I feel so blessed and lucky because we get to go together. And yet some days, like, he's working with the camera department or the technical, and I'm working with production, figuring out the budget or figuring out something else. Like, some days we don't even see that much of each other. But yet, like, we're working towards the same thing. We're with this, like, amazing group of people that we've collected over the years that are my family, because, you know, we also bring our family and our dogs, and, you know, you're on the road so much that you want to make it home. And I don't think that's what people realize. Like, a lot of times they see the movie premieres and the articles and whatever, but a lot of the time it's like 14-hour shoot days. And I'm not complaining or anything, because I feel lucky to get to do what we get to do. But it is, you know, there's a lot of times you're really cold, or too hot, or you're breathing in all this dust or whatever. Like, it is definitely not the glamour that gets portrayed in the media. But at the same time, you're building something, and the excitement to take something that was nothing, like, especially when it's an original IP, you know, like, this didn't exist. And there's this idea that Zach had, and then we made it into a script. And then you get to all the decisions for me of, like, the people we hire, the costume designers. Like, to me, those are all creative decisions, because they're the ones that's shaping, you know, the vision, because it's about a team, you know, and it's about creating this, whatever you're creating, it takes everybody, and, you know, at the leadership of the director. But, you know, I think it works best when you're hiring people and you let them do what you hired them to be secure enough to give them the reins to do their best work, you know, and that to me is the exciting part, like, seeing it all come together like that.
Well,
I believe your friend Tom. Oh, so sorry.
I was just gonna say,
your
like,
friend
like,
Tom mentioned.
Amanda, we have to stop meeting like this. I was just gonna say really quick, it really is, like, you guys work so beautifully together. Like, from just talking to you, like, even casually, like, when we're not working on JusticeCon or something, you and Zach, like, seem like call and response. Like, you guys just you exist on this wavelength that's, like, just for the two of you, and it's just so beautiful, like, to see, even in just, like, a casual conversation, like, he'll start saying something, lose the word, and you'll know exactly what he was trying to say, and it's just so sweet and beautiful. And like the whole fandom just loves looking at, like, you guys as your relationship and your family, and just, like, that's all what we all want one day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
God.
Yeah, I mean, I feel grateful. And it's interesting, though, like, the other night we were debating about something, and very, you know, it gets passionate when it's about the work. We're not, like, arguing. We're just like, well, I just think it should be. And my 10-year-old was like, you guys need to stop fighting. And I go, well, we're debating over this, like, creative issue here. And she's like, I don't know. It sounds like, you know, you guys are fighting. And I go, no, we really are not. Like, we're actually talking about something totally different, not even having to do with us. And she's like, okay, then. Go ahead, kiss me. Oh, we're not fighting. Like, no, because I think, too, like, there is passion in what we do. And we do, you know, I think both of us are very strong in our opinions. I always say, though, like, you know, the thing that's the trickiest, right, is that at the end of the day, he's the director of the movie and I'm the producer. And it's my job to bring and support the director's vision and get that on the screen. So even though sometimes I might disagree creatively with what it is, and we will never argue, like behind the scenes, we will have fiery debates, but then we have a united front always when like, and at the end of the day, as his role as director, like I know what my job is. And the thing is you got to realize that that's your roles and not to take it personal into the personal life. Like that's just, and I think as long as you know that, like, it's okay. But you, I think just being aware of that always is important.
I've had an audience question here, so just so before we move on, is a question. Can you please talk about the Schneider Cut presentation, what it was like? I would assume it's when you guys went to HBO Max, not ages and ages ago.
Yes. So that in and of itself is a journey. So after you all did this amazing outcry on the anniversary, it really, I think cumulatively, starting with Comic-Con leading up to November, like there were so many activations and they couldn't ignore the fruit baskets and the airplanes flying overhead and everything. Like, you know, we did get the call from our agent and he said, are you sitting down? You know, I just got a call and the studio wants to know if you want to release your cut on HBO Max. Yeah. And we were like, what? First of all, like, what? Like, you know, like as much as like the fan community wanted it, and you know, I don't even think we even like wanted to be hopeful that that would happen because I don't think we thought it would ever happen. But they said, but you know, we don't have any money, and you know, so you can release it as your rough cut. And Zach's like, well, that's not good, you know, and they said, well, so our agent went back and he said, well, what does that mean? Like, well, what would it take? You know, to their credit, they were like, okay, well, what does it mean? But trying to figure out what that means, like we had this cut of the movie that existed for ourselves, but like to figure out like, what would the visual effects cost? Like, we found out that, you know, some of the music that Junkie was working on was not available anymore, that he used for something else. And, you know, like we had to do re-music. So we started and it took a great deal of time and we were doing it in secret because we didn't want there to be false hope if this was, because we knew that it wasn't going to be super cheap because the visual effects alone, we ended up with 2,656, I believe, roughly, give or take a couple visual effects shots. 2,656. As a comparison, we were like 1,200 on Army of the Dead, right? And
that's insane.
It's insane, the amount of visual effects, right? Because it's longer. The movie's twice as long, and also the visual effects that were completed and they looked very different. So we needed to redo them, but we had to figure out like what existed. And so we literally went to our visual effects vendors and we're like, you can't say anything, you know, our visual effects supervisor and producer were working on Kong versus Godzilla. So on their downtime, they came and had to look at the movie and like do a whole breakdown. But, you know, they had a full-time job, so they had to do it on the weekends or after hours. And like, it was a lot of, this would have been a full-time job for someone. So knowing that it was going to be expensive, we wanted to, like, what is the why for them to do it, right? And the why is that it's going to make sense for them. It's going to drive subscribers, but what does that mean? So the other thing we did in our pitch, we did posters because we always do posters that we can put all over the walls and everything, like what the campaign could look like. They were all like, and they were very similar. They're black and white character posters. Zach might have even shared some of them, but in the deck, and I think the thing that really sold them was we figured out the analytics, right? We looked at like how many people, like what were the impressions, what, you know, CAA has a department and they helped us. And we said, okay, let's look at this fan base. Where are they? What are they doing? What is this? And then let's look at the top movies or streamers on Netflix and what is their fan base like? Because when, and let's look at all of DC and let's see what, like, how do our analytics compare? Because, and if we can say that like Netflix, if we're double or triple what the top films or series are on Netflix, like that translates into something. And they had never really looked at it that way. So we had literally a whole pitch of different points in your campaign that we were able to track. And I think that combined with, you know, we showed them Zach's cut too. Like, but that was the next step. We did the pitch. Here's the why of it. Here's the numbers to kind of back it up. Here's what it's going to cost you. And they were like, well, can you do it? You know, we wanted a year to get it done. We're like, okay, we need it by March. And we're like, oh, March. And this was still in maybe January or February. It might have been end of January, beginning of February. And it still took them months to figure out if legally they could do this, if like all these things. Like, I don't think we actually, I don't remember the date that we greenlit. I remember drinking champagne because I couldn't believe it. But by the time we actually got started, because what we realized then when we dug into the movie, that some of the shots that we thought that were archived were not archived, and we had to like start over on more visual effects shots than we anticipated. And you know, it was putting something together that was 3 years old and picking up the pieces of where we left off. Like, and some of that stuff wasn't saved; they just moved on. So we had to like recreate it, or the vendors had to like go into their archives. So the process was pretty complicated. And then we have this ticking clock because they really, really wanted it for March. But everyone delivered, like the vendors, I think for everybody, it was this cathartic experience, you know, because the vendors too, like they continued to work on the movie, but what they thought they were working on and how it looked was not how it ended up. So for them to be able to actually put back the character designs, put back the backgrounds the way they were, like they helped us develop that, you know. So for so many people, not just us, it was about kind of, you know, going on this journey together to try and, you know, get some closure, you know. And
so we're in the Schneiderverse.
Here's just a message from Victor.
Oh, thank you.
And I think we missed one or two.
Yes.
Questions.
But
Debbie, one question that I actually had is actually just kind of from a mom's point of view. I know that you said that you kind of have to make being on the road your home, whether it be dogs, kids, everything, you know, depending on the length of the time that you have to be on the road. How do you juggle that being, you know, in this kind of business with still trying to, you know, be the mom? I mean, I have 3 teenage boys myself, 2 dogs, a husband, and it's like that alone can be, you know, nerve-wracking. So I can't imagine taking it on the road and then adding your day into it. So how do you cope with that? And
Yeah,
how are you doing with that?
It's tricky. By the way, it is tricky. Like, actually, before I came here, I was just, my kids ride horses and I was at the barn and I wanted to see them ride. My son's just starting to jump and my daughter has been jumping for a little while. So I try, but they're riding at like 3:30 in the afternoon. And it's like, I want to go see them. So I literally race there and then race back here. And it's a lot of that. Like if I can steal a minute, I mean, it's been nice to be during this year a little bit because we have been home. We're working. You know, our office is just out the back, so the kids are here. I can come up for lunch. We get to see a lot of them, a lot more than we would because they're here all the time. Although they're just going back to school. but it also takes a lot of, like, it does take a village when, when you know, and that sounds, you know, corny or whatever, but like, you know, I have my nanny and Eli's with us. And like this morning we had to go to IMAX where actually we were working on seeing the IMAX version. And we had to be there at like 7, but usually the kids are in school. So Eli came and helped, and my nanny came early, and you just juggle, you know. I mean, I think the older kids help a lot, especially Eli is here. And, you know, you make it, you just kind of make it work. But and the one thing we decided, I think that, rather than, and I know some people, and everyone does what's right for their family, but we were like, oh, we're not gonna, the stability of keeping the kids in school is really great, but I think it's more important for them to be with family, and they're gonna learn more by living in all these great places, and they can be a citizen of the world. They can realize that their world is not just where they are. They can, you know, so I think traveling with them, and whether it's New Mexico or we were in New Jersey for a little bit, which we were close to family, or England or Detroit, like they've gotten to see so many different people. And I think they're kind of used to that now. And I think, yes, it might be a little bit more unstable and it gets trickier as they get older with school, but I would rather have them and us together as a family. And I also feel like the education they're getting, being exposed to different places, is so valuable, because we are living in this global world right now. And I think, you know, I think we need to start thinking about that more.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like, I always like felt a little bad for kids whenever it came to the production, because like you'd hear stories about how kids like would never see their parents because they're a famous actor. But the fact that like you guys take them along and you expose them to all these things, and you can see them even just a second or whatever, it's like that probably means so much to them. And you're making them into these like little geniuses, because they're going to know so much about more world than their classmates.
It is funny though, their knowledge, like Cash will be like, I know that's CGI. He's 8. CGI. I don't think it looks so good, Mom. I just don't. Who are you? Like, who are you? The fact that you even know that.
How cute is that?
Japanese anime right now. And I go, Zach, some of these things you're playing, they're not very appropriate, because he's like Hunter x Hunter or whatever, like,
oh my God.
Player. Like, I was like, he's 8 years old. These kids they're very
Okay. Well, I have to say, I watched 300 with 11 years old.
Okay.
So, but at least like he's watching it around like with the kids there, because when I was 8 years old, we were banned from stuff like that. So what my brothers and I would do is we would sneak out of bed at night and go down to the playroom and watch it in the middle of the night. And yes, we'd get caught. So, and it was always anime too, because my mom was like, "This is way too violent for you." So at least, you know, sneaking out of bed at night to go watch it.
By the way, that is true. And it's been really nice because there's a lot of like the Ghibli studios, like there's been so much, and they love watching that. Like we watch a lot, and some of I've seen a lot of it, but for them it's really new. So during the pandemic, like when you're trying to look for things to do to make it special, and you know, we do have a screening room, which I've been very lucky about having, because we'll like, you know, well now they have braces, so we can't make popcorn, and you know, but we'll like go down and get a snack and like put on an anime and watch it, and that's like a nice activity for Saturday afternoon or something, you know.
That's cool.
The trials of braces at that age. I know it well. I had braces for 7 years, starting at age 7, so I understand the struggle. So we got a question from our buddy Carrie. He says, "Hey Debbie, you're awesome. What was it like when you and Zach met with Chris Nolan and Emma Thomas? What was it like for two amazing filmmaking couples to hang out and talk movies together?"
Well, first of all, I consider Chris and Emma close friends. Like they've been really great friends of ours since we met them. And we met them on Man of Steel because they had developed this amazing script. And I remember my first inclination when we got the call that they wanted to sit down and talk about it was, no way. I was like, I don't know. I think it's so hard to get at. I was like, maybe Batman, maybe Wonder Woman, but like, I felt like Superman was so hard to get at, and I felt like it was going to expose us in a strange way. I don't know, I didn't know anything about the script. And we went to their house and we had lunch with them, and they kind of pitched the idea of what they had. And I was like, well, this seems too good to be true. Like, because, for me, and I think it was a way to make Superman relatable. And I've talked about this a lot, but I always feel like, in order for me to care about these characters, I want to see something of me, or like, I just think it gives me more of an emotional connection. And I know not everyone feels like that, but like, so they had this beautiful script that David Goyer wrote, and it started out with this, and it was an adoption story. And, that our kids are, we have, our kids are adopted, and some of the older kids are adopted. So like, to me, it just resonated in so many ways. But I was finally able to relate to this person who has these godlike, abilities, but yet feeling lost in the world and trying to find his place in the world, and seeing that journey. I just thought it was beautiful on so many, and the relationships with with his dads, and like, there was just so much of it that, I could relate to. And we were like, okay, and there were certain things, there were a few things, like, as everything that you want to make your own and change. And we developed the script and everything, with them. And they were super great. They were super supportive. But they were also doing one of the Dark Knight, I forgot which one at the time, but they were doing Dark Knight, right? So they weren't around all the time, but like, they were there for the big decisions. But they also, they were hiring someone who definitely has a point of view. I think that after they had seen Watchmen, like, that's what led them to thinking Zach would be a good choice to direct it. And, it's pretty specific. I mean, no one would ever say that Zach does not have a point of view. So they really wanted to support his vision and be there and be helpful. And, it's been really nice to kind of nurture this friendship throughout all of it. And, I to have another, director, producer, husband and wife team. I mean, we have a lot of, similarities, and family is important to them, and the work is important, and they're so passionate about what they do. So it's been a really great experience.
Yeah. So you mentioned in the Variety interview that you and Chris saw Justice League together. How did that feel? Like, how were you, like, were you guys like sitting next to each other, like making the kind of comments like any of us would make with our buddies at the cinema? Like, were you like looking at each other like,
what is this?
It was an unusual circumstance, because I actually was not expecting to really see the movie, or, and I kind of was like trying to not think about its release. But then you think about like all the people that worked on the film that were our people, and you think about all the actors, and we started talking about it, and he was like, well, I think we should go, we should see the film. And it was this really crazy thing, because there were a couple things. I wanted to be there and support the people that we had hired and brought in and worked with for all this time. And I also wanted people to know, in the nicest way, like without like bashing the film or anything, that this was, it was hard for us because it wasn't Zach's vision, that this, and I think, that balance, I just wanted to be honest about that, but also not, I didn't want to trash the movie by any means or anything, because a lot of the people that we care about and, are worked really hard, so it was just the strangest experience. And I think it was also, and regardless of whether it was good or bad, right? It just seeing something that you spent so much time developing and you had a specific vision that you were working on, together. And then to have something just not be that vision, or to look at certain choices that were made and you're like, well, why did you change that? Like, that's insane broken. Like, the Man of Steel thing. Where is that? Like, that was beautiful. Like, I don't know. Like, there was a lot of things as I was watching it that were really hard to comprehend. And by the way, even just without judgment, whether good or bad, just like, I like the choices when you make different choices feels, it's just I don't know how many people have ever had that experience. It's such an odd experience to have. And it's funny because that's the only time I watched the movie. I think I was pretty silent through the whole thing, but afterwards we were talking, and then we were like, yeah, I think it would be heartbreaking for Zach to see the movie because it's just so far from what we were doing. That's kind of what, where we landed.
Yeah, I have a cousin that she was like 14 years old by the time the movie came out. She was 14. She was like, this is not Zack, right? And I was like, how do you sense that? And she loved Man of Steel and BBS, and she said, this is not the same vibes that I got, and some things are weird. And a kid with 14 years old to be able to see that, it's like, it's too on the nose, the changes and all that.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, when we walked away, I don't think we didn't want anything. Like, it had to be a clean break for us, because you can't be like half in and half out. And honestly, we just couldn't, like, it was too much. Like, even us trying to and thinking we could come back to work a couple weeks after, it was too much. And listen, it might have been different if it was like a smaller movie with less pressure, where you were seeing the movie eye to eye, but that wasn't the case on this one. And I really honestly feel like we did the right. I mean, I feel like what we have now is a movie that you're going to see so much more than if we had stayed on, because it would have always been more compromised, even in the under 2 hour running time, Yeah. It's a group of people coming together. That's a really impossible task. But like, here we are. And I think with the, that's what I love about, I love going to movies in the theater, and I hope someday that returns in such a glorious way. But I really also love the streamers, because it's allowing us to go more in deep. I think people, their expectations when they're going to watch something is that you can binge watch it. You can watch more. You're a little bit more patient. Whereas in a movie, you're like, okay, when's the team getting together? Like, you feel like there's this rush to the end, and I feel like you miss all the development and the nuances in the middle. And I think when you're watching something on a streaming service, you're getting that. You're getting the nuances, and you're expecting that, and you can wait. And, what's good, and I don't know if we've talked about it, because there was a lot of talk, and we were going to do it in part, like the movie when Zach, when we left, the movie that we kind of took for our own copy, of the movie to have or to play with our friends or whatever. It always was, it has parts and it has titles in it. Yeah. So each part is kind of thematic, which is really nice. And we did talk to them, and I think we even said, oh, it's going to be 4 parts and whatever. And there was a lot of legalities of being able to do that and not do it. And also too, I think there's been some feedback, which they pay attention and they see on their other services, like Netflix drops things all at once, right? And they were dropping things per week, and people are like, well, I kind of want to see it all at once. So, yeah. What I think is great and on the service is that, it's the full 4. Someone asked me today what the whole length is, and they're going to get back to me, but it's like 4 something with credits. But there's 7 titles, and at each title, and what they've done for us, which, I thank the engineers, because I know it took a while, is, when you see the timeline, when you have a movie, there's breaks in the timeline. So you'll be able to go to each break, because the titles aren't that long, right? So you miss the break. Like, because, some people will want to watch all 4 hours, but like, I might only want to watch 2 parts, or I might not have time to watch all of it. So I can, and at first they were like, well, where you leave off. And I go, yeah, but I fall asleep and Zach's watching something and then I don't know where I am. And it's 4 hours to find out where I am. I don't want our fans to be like frustrated with this. So I think that's a way to be able to, on each title card, if you want to go back and see a certain section again, you can find it easy, so I think that was something
we're not going to fall asleep during this.
Yeah.
We're going to be like, let me rewatch that 15 times.
Oh, yeah,
some people have taken off work for the 18th to watch this. So I think, and I think Junkie XL, when he was on the vodka stream with Dave Pina, said that the runtime was something like 4 hours and 20 minutes with titles.
I feel like that's not. I feel like that feels long to me. I think it's like a little over 4 hours, but it's really beautiful. We had Alison Crow, like the title sequence, and it's interesting because the movie does get dedicated to Autumn. And the first time, even though you talk about it, the first time you like actually sit in the theater and you watch it, it took me back. But Alison Crow did this amazing new version of Hallelujah. And it's the whole credit sequence basically, and the credits are long because there's a lot of visual effects people and everything, but it's this beautiful. It starts out with just this long piano before the vocals kick in, and it's pretty. I mean, for us, it has this meaning, and I think to a lot of you who've been, part of this journey with us and have been raising money in her name, which to me is, been the most, it's so difficult to talk about really, because I've never seen anything, like it. And it's as much as any one of you in the fan community wanted something, you were always thinking about something else and helping other people. And even right now, it's been such a year with everybody's had these personal struggles, I think, this year. And I think just all the awareness that we've raised for AFSP, not to mention the money, but just, it's something that people feel still ashamed of. There's such a stigma with mental illness. And right now, and it's really sad. I was actually talking to them today, to Ashley, and she was saying, because the mission was to lower the suicide rate by 25% by 2025. And 2019 was the first year that actually the numbers went down, but we don't know yet about 2020, and they don't think that is going to be the case. And they don't know also what the lasting impact, not just for this year, but how it will affect people in the future. So I think the work, even though it started with something so, personal, I think the work really, for what this world has experienced in so many different ways, with the racial tensions, with tensions over, the election, no matter what side you're on, just there's been a lot of stress and anxiety and people losing their businesses and people worried about their health, that I just think that this work is so important now.
Well, we learned it from you guys. You guys really, even when you guys were really in the darkest parts of mourning, you guys mentioned you did a phone donation in honor of Autumn to AFSP, and then we as a fandom, we became aware of AFSP. I've had mental health issues since I was a teenager, and I never heard of AFSP before. I'd heard of other resources, but not that one. And it just started with Justice Pledge, with, spending the money on the DVD instead there. And that was literally done because you guys led by example. And we decided that was something that we could all get behind because it made sense, for us as people, as individuals, but also as those of us who support you guys and your family.
Well, it's very appreciated, and I just think it's such great work. It's great work, and it's interesting because I didn't know either, and I feel like, you know, not to get too heavy, but we didn't know where to turn, you know, and I think that was part of our decision, like just like I didn't know there were resources, and you know, and it was so hard finding psychiatrists and therapists that deal with teens and specifically, and they would be like, yeah, in a month I have a waiting list for a month or 2 weeks, and you're like literally spending 2 days on the phone trying to find resources. And I just didn't know that and you'd think that we would know that, you know, and I think a lot of people don't know that what resources when you're desperate and you're looking for help. So, you know, as great as the money is, I think also talking about it and like just the awareness too is like, you know, so, you know, critical.
100%. And it's definitely pretty crazy how hard it is to find resources, especially in America, like right now with how much, like we're such a progressive country when it comes to mental health, but then at the same time, we're like also 2 steps forward and 5 steps back. And it's definitely been one of the highlights for a lot of us who've struggled before to be able to have a platform to talk about this stuff and raise awareness. And it's the why to why we keep doing this. And just like to reassure you, in case you were worried, it's never going to stop. I don't think. Some of us have become a little bit addicted to raising money for AFSP, to making sure people know.
Yeah.
Like
that's not a bad thing to be addicted to.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, it just feels good. And we're gonna have Ashley. We met back on Justice Con to talk about more about the fundraising and whatnot. And that was one of our biggest panels last year. It was so amazing to see the community interacting with Ashley and a mental health expert. Everyone was learning and also learning about resources.
Yeah, Ashley and Doreen, and we've been in touch with them, and they agreed, and we're very happy to come back. So we're gonna have them back on Justice Con, which I'm personally really happy about that. Because Cole says, you know, in the States, the mental health awareness is, you know, not as good. Frankly, from my own experience, you know, I grew up in Czech Republic, and I've had my personal struggles. And I know, you know, my family members had them. And a lot of them are in denial, still not even thinking about it. Like this could be an issue that I could talk to someone about, or it's still looked down upon, like it's something shameful almost. And I think that it's important that we raise the awareness everywhere, not just in the US, even though AFSP obviously focuses on US. Just talking about it, like you mentioned, talking about it wherever we can. It's just important because it's still not like the resources are still not available to everybody. And if they are available, not everybody knows about them.
So like now that this is such a great thing that we've managed to like do this and like bring awareness through Justice Con and like through the events like the halls and all the other events that we've raised money in. But these have been highlights of the past year or so since it was announced, and then even before that when we were doing all of that fun stuff. So for you, what was your highlight whilst since May the 20th up until March 18th? You and Zach have been working so hard on this. So what was the moment where you felt like this is it, this is the most memorable part of the experience? Was it an editing part, or was it like, I don't know, a decision that was made that you finally got to do? So what was it, if you had such a moment, at least?
Well, it's interesting because I'm going to walk back even further, because I think what like struck me was maybe not this year, but a year prior, like, you know, to when we started working on this. And I think it was around Zach's birthday or something. And it was actually one of the videos that the fans compiled. And a lot of it was about what these characters meant. It was about people going through struggles and it was so personal. And I remember Zach and I watched it, and I said, because listen, some of our films have been polarizing, and we've, I always said, with BVS, how this kind of all started was some people didn't like the deconstructive nature of it, but having the patience to try and get to JL, where these heroes, we were on this journey, and I think for us, it was more interesting to see them become the heroes that we expect them to be. But our whole plan was always to get there and to see that. But if you started there, where would you go, right? So to actually see that the work meant something to people, to touch someone, when you make these movies, if it, you could go to a movie and then you don't talk about it and you just go out for dinner afterwards when we're not in COVID, that is, but and you don't really discuss it, or because I don't even care if you want to debate or argue, if people feel passionate one way or another, it struck a chord, it caused emotion. And I think that video, and there were two of them actually, and I was like, all these people around the world, your films have meant that you've touched people, and to me that moment, and it didn't matter at the time, we didn't even know that Justice League was a possibility, but just that moment has meant the most to me, because how many people can say that they've touched so many people in those ways, and you don't realize it, and especially because sometimes the negativity and for a while, I felt like it was always about us getting attacked, exactly, get attacked, or people, the haters had a larger voice. And then it kind of to hear these other voices that we didn't know were out there, I don't know, that to me meant, I think, more than anything on the journey,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, for me personally, Cole can probably attest to it, because I was never superhero person until she got me into it. And for me, it was a lot about the fact that I could, relate to how you guys portrayed superheroes. And you mentioned earlier about Superman that, it was the script that kind of got you interested in that movie, in Man of Steel. And it was similar for me, because I never really found any interest in Superman, but in what you guys did with him, I could relate to so much, especially the immigrant side of him, because I never really got that feeling from the comics, but I am an immigrant. At the time when I watched it, I was an immigrant in the US. At the moment, I'm an immigrant in the UK. And there's a lot of things that people don't know if they're not in that position. And what you guys did with Superman, it was just sort of it was nice to see on the screen. It was nice to see hey, if Superman can struggle like this on even grander scale and can get through it, so can you, and it's really something that got to me, and that's what got me to these movies. And like you said, your movies is something that you remember, that we remember, and it stays with us, and it brings a message that we kind of carry on. Well, there are movies out there who are great, but you literally forget them once you leave the cinema.
I mean, BVS has been managing to trend on Twitter every anniversary since it came out. What other movie can do that? I mean, other than like Alien or what have you does at their anniversary, it's that's cool, but they don't do it every single year.
I know. It's funny. And I think people and maybe it was there, but the voices have shifted, but I feel like there's more of an affinity towards that movie now than there was when it came out. We did though, because it was interesting. I don't know And we learned about it online because someone's like, they changed the color, right? And we're like, oh, they changed the color, right? There was like, someone posted like the difference between the colors, right? So we did this whole investigation. They didn't change the color. It kind of got uploaded wrong. Like, I was like, well, the Blu-ray I'm looking at the Blu-ray and the color's right on the Blu-ray. But they're like, we're going to remaster it because now, it will be digitally available at the time of release, the new remastered 4K version. And what we also did was we were able, because we shot a bunch of those scenes with the IMAX cameras, right? And they're the square, which people think there's less room because of the sides. But actually, when you actually film the film, just like Justice League, you'll see there's so much more. They actually did these spots because they go, people are going to get mad because they think you're chopping off the sides. So they go, so we're going to show them. So they did these like side by sides of like, here's what it looked like. And now here's what it looks like. And you can see like, there's more helicopters. And because it was the battle sequence, it was the fight, and it was the nightmare sequence. But you'll see that you were missing like a lot of stuff. So I know they're re-releasing the DVD a little later, but because they couldn't get it done in time, but on the digital platforms, because I think they were thinking, well, maybe people might want to see where it came from. I think day and date, the new version will be up there. So it's pretty cool. It was fun to be able to do that, and also to be able to correct the color because it was a lot brighter, and it was just weird. It did something with the highlights and everything, but now it's all correct and everything.
I just love that it was a fan on the internet wait, and you guys were like, hang on a second.
Like, what is going on here? And then the studio was great because they were like, we have no idea. And they go, yes, it is different. But it was weird because like on Apple, it was different than the DVD. Like it was different in different places. And it was something about how it was uploaded. I don't even know technically. That's not my forte, but it's now, we were able to do the more 4K high res version of it. So it's great.
A lot of people got TVs for that.
Yes,
I volunteer to upload Sucker Punch in the wrong color to every streaming service so that you guys
do it.
Do it again.
Amanda's actually with her friend working on a podcast, Sucker Punch by Women.
Yes.
Break it down minute by minute.
No, I wish. No, my husband's the crazy one. But I married Stephen Colbert, who does BVS by the Minute podcast. So yes, it has been like gaining traction. I think BVS is like a slow burn for people. Like it's just starting to click in for some. But Sucker Punch is, I think the first movie I watched of Zach's was 300. But Sucker Punch was the first movie that I watched of Zach that I immediately rewatched and was like, this is my, like, do you want to have a great Saturday? Watch this at 9 a.m. Do you want to rage about a bad thing that happened because you had a crappy week? Watch this Friday at midnight. It's my everything movie. So I was like, why not talk about it? I could talk about it for a million hours with someone if they'd let me. So I should just do that and then give people the option to not listen.
Oh my God. It's still surprising to me. Someone asked me the other day, and they were a journalist, and they were like, how did you feel about people thinking the movie was sexist? And I was like, I never thought that it would, like, it's so far from the opposite because it was a commentary that we were doing. And like, just because it looks like kind of some of the action sequence, like a gaming sequence, or just because like we're so aware of all those things, like, and and we have these young like feminist actors who like, like I was like, how is this, like, I was surprised actually that it was like such a miss. And I go, but do you know how many women love this film? Like they understand it and they get it. And, but that was always a little bit shocking to me that sometimes when you're making, and if you look at Zach's work, there's always, there's a commentary or deconstruction, like it kind of is very thematic, usually it's not very straightforward. 300 was probably the most straightforward thematically of a movie, but even with that one, everyone was like, who's George Bush and who's like, and I was like, what? It's a graphic novel. Like, meant this to be, and we're like, well, this is Frank's like thing that actually didn't have the subtext that people, I remember we were in Berlin, and they said we were at the Berlin Film Festival, and first of all, I had never I was so scared because it was all these people in the audience, and we're on this panel, and the one guy said to Zach, like, so is this movie pro-gay or pro-NRA? And Zach's like, what? I mean, it was like, and I was like, oh my God, question, please don't ask. Like, I wasn't used to talking really in front of people. And I wasn't expecting, I was like, there's no guns in the movie. This is like 480 BC.
Oh my God.
I can't wrap my head around that.
I can't either.
I've told Zach this before, the 300 movie, it literally is the reason why my brother has gone broke with buying history books. Because even though it was not historically accurate at all, it launched this curiosity in history that led to him reading about the real 300. And then it was just downhill from there. Every time somebody asks him, what got you interested in history? Why did you go to school to be a historian? And he says, it's because of 300. He watched it so many times, he broke the DVD. My dad had to keep it in backup because he would play it constantly, and he'd have his books out. And then
Zach turned someone on to the classics.
Right.
and we do love, to be able to take history and make it modern so people so it's more accessible, I think is cool. We Gianni Nunari, who is one of our producing partners, actually came to us with this amazing Napoleon script, and it's and it's different in that, but it's something that we were like, wow, this is a modern, it's very modern in its telling, although very different than 300. Because everyone goes, oh, are you going to do 300? We did that, but there's other things we can do. But I love the notion of being able to make something historical accessible. That's really fun.
It also became haunting for me personally because I was in high school, going into high school, and I live in a town named Sparta. So this is Sparta gets shouted. The football team had picked Tonight We Dine in Hell t-shirts they wore on off weekends. It was everywhere. That was their fighting cry. My football team, I got kicked out of a game with a Catholic school almost because they kept saying tonight we'll dine in hell. And they were like, no, you can't say that here. You're the visitors.
So I think someone asked earlier, but Eli was, she might have been 8. He might have been younger than that. I don't remember exactly, but he plays the young Leonidas, right? But we do I think we've gotten a little easier with the older kids. I don't let them watch rated R movies, but the anime, I draw the line, I guess it's animated, but they had never seen 300, and he went to high school and he was a quarterback and he played football, and they would play the soundtrack, but he didn't tell anyone that he was in the movie, or he just didn't want and then they found out, and then it was all over from there.
And by then, had he finally seen it, seen himself in the movie?
He saw it when he was in high school. Yeah, the kids hadn't seen it. Their friends had all seen it, and we're like, I don't know, this isn't necessarily appropriate.
That's hysterical. I love that. It was by the time he was a football player that became a thing for him.
Yeah.
My question for you though too is, I'm sorry. With you said with your love of Superman, like BVS, and also with Man of Steel. I also read in one of your interviews, because of Superman being so relatable to you and just loving the storyline and everything, and then seeing for Justice League how it went a different direction. How do you and Zach feel about being able to see your story come to fruition through this Justice League telling?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, especially in this longer version, you get to see the arcs of all these characters, right? So, you know, I feel like because Superman did have his own movie and then was with Batman, like we know a little bit more about him. But, you know, I'm really excited. And you know a little bit more about Wonder Woman because now we've had 2 movies with Wonder Woman. And by the way, I think that in this whole thing, to be able to cast Wonder Woman and have her come, like, you know, it was so long overdue. And we can talk about, you know, that and women in the industry. That to me is something I'm passionate about. But to have these other stories, to get more from Flash and Cyborg in particular, I think Cyborg, he's the one I think I knew the least about. And I don't know if, you know, I think maybe fans know the least about, but really to see, he is the heart of our movie. And he wasn't as present in the other movie. So, and listen, I think all the arcs of all the characters, like even Aquaman, like you get to see a little bit more about his struggles, you know, and Volko is in the movie. We get to see Volko, which is really great because he wasn't in the theatrical, from what I remember. And you got a little bit more of the why and the backstory. So I think it's richer for all of them. And I think you understand their struggles more. So the movie makes more sense. And I think also feels, for me, more fulfilling at the end because you have gone on this journey, you know, and we didn't, you know, a lot of times when you're cutting for time and stuff, that stuff just has to go. And that's why I think, like, you know, this is kind of the best possible version of seeing the movie, you know, in this way. Because if it was theatrical, even if it was Zach's vision theatrical, it would have been really difficult, you know.
Yeah.
And basically what I wanted to say was, you know, how you said there's always an issue that people have with Zack Snyder's movies. It's quite similar to Christopher Nolan. Like, people have issues with Tenet and Interstellar, and they're very picky and they don't understand things and they don't want to, you know, put the effort and the time to actually view this movie and take something for themselves and like actually assess how it makes them feel. Because, you know, although the movies that we tend to get generally are great and they're fun and they're easy to watch, they're very easy to just, you know, enjoy your time with, and that's perfectly fine and that's great, and I'm happy that people get to enjoy that. I think what the sad thing is now, what the sad thing that we're seeing now is that people aren't willing to sit down and actually give a movie its due, or a show, even shows as well. So like when you look at it and look at Zach's filmography and see what he produces, he demands that the audience actually sits down, looks at this movie, and like takes something for themselves from it, whether it's Batman vs Superman, or whether it's Watchmen, or whether it's Sucker Punch, or even Owls of Gaul, which that movie is beautiful to watch and has such great morals and lessons in there that, you know, you can share with your children. So when you see that people have such a, you know, backlash, it doesn't make sense to me. But that's why I feel like Zach's movies and Zach's work has such a strong connection to a lot of people. And to back off this is, when you want to take on a project, or like when you want to produce a movie or a film or whatever it is, especially now that you have Stone Quarry, which is something that we're so excited to see what you guys, you know, get to do with it. What is the one thing that you or Zach you know, look for specifically in a story? Is it the story itself, or is it I don't know, whatever element that you look out for? What is it that you know, drives you or Zach? Sorry, that was really long, but yeah.
No. Listen, I think maybe I do agree with you. I think some of the movies, most of the movies, I guess, are challenging, you know, and some of them make you feel uncomfortable, right? And you're supposed to feel uncomfortable, like whether it's something that's super violent or, you know, like it shouldn't always sit well. And I think, you know, sometimes people don't want that. And you know what? Sometimes I don't want that. Sometimes I want to watch like a romantic comedy and just like have a lovely evening, but sometimes I want something deeper. And I think, you know, I think that challenge, you are right, that, you know, it takes some patience and unpacking to do. In terms of the work, you know, I think it is about the story and resonating something. You know, we live with these sometimes for years, or sometimes, you know, it takes 10 years to make a movie that you tried to get made and you're still trying to get, and, you know, it's not the right time, but it doesn't mean it's not going to get made. You got to keep just pushing it along. We always are developing a few things that, you know, we have. So when, you know, if something doesn't work out, there's something else that might work out, but it doesn't mean that just because it didn't work out that you're not going to make it. You know, I feel like, hope, like Army of the Dead is a perfect example of that. Right. But I think if you don't have a great story or something that you feel like, you know, connected to, I think a lot of our stories are people overcoming something. It's, they definitely, you know, Joseph Campbell is like a big influence, I think, on a lot of the work. There's always, you know, not always, but a lot of them is the hero's journey. You know, I do think, that we're working on this amazing sci-fi thing it's another original thing that I can't really talk about, but it's this amazing journey, and there's a really strong female protagonist who's
There's all there's all
come true. I'm
and I know it's like that hero's journey. It's, you know, so I think that, you know, the stories, whether it's an existing IP or whether it's original, power and what you do with power, I think, is something that is of interest, and that journey to becoming the best that you can be, like, is something that resonates with us a lot. And for me, and also for Zach, I think having strong female characters are, you know, essential. Everything, you know, from 300, which had all these men, you know, Gorgo was 2 frames in Frank's novel, and Lena Gorgo was such a strong female character that didn't really, you know, exist like that in the comic book. And, you know, Lois, I think, was a really amazing, Amy was such a great Lois, and her strength, and she equaled, and, you know, he leaned on her as much as she did. So like all these, and then obviously Sucker Punch. But I feel like the movies that we do pick, and choose the stories we choose to tell, you know, I think there's a balance of men and women in terms of their power and their strength. And we've been also really trying for diversity, because it is a global world that we're living in. And I think seeing characters, and especially superheroes, that kids and everybody can just see themselves in something, is something that's important to us. I mean, it was really fun when we did Army, because we have such a global cast, amazing women, but like people from all over the world. And I think, you know, being able to to do that and making conscious efforts, because that's what I always say, like, especially with like women behind the camera, or, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, getting more inclusion, but I do believe you have to make conscious decisions, and then hopefully someday it will be just the norm. But I do think right now, you know, making those decisions, and me as a producer, someone who's hiring people, someone who's populating those sets, it's just really important to have that diversity, whether it's gender or, you know, just, you know, people of all, you know, different backgrounds and different ethnicities. And, you know, that's something that's important. And, you know, how we do that, you know, I have been trying it on every movie. I try and get young women and also young kids. And a lot of times, like when we were in England for Justice League, I had 2 women that were on social assistance that came and they spent 5 weeks with me. They would spend the first week with me and the last week with me, and then I'd have them pick different departments. Because the thing is, a lot of times, like, we know that there's a director and we know that there's a writer and we know that there's actors, but we don't know about the props person, or, you know, we've been working with a female best boy or a female stunt coordinator. Like, and I do believe, you know, Gina Davis has done, and I really admire her for her work that she's done on gender equality in the industry. But she always says, like, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think that's the thing, like, being able to see that you could, that there are these other roles that you could, like, it's not just being a director or actor. You know, I'd like to see more women behind the camera. I'd like to see more women in technical positions and more visual effects supervisors that are women, and, you know, and I think just trying to mentor and show, and it's not the kids in film school, because they're already in film school. It's about the kids that don't think that there's a possibility for them, and like trying to get to them. And, you know, I can't get to everyone, but in a small way, if I could do it on every movie and have a class or have a couple young women, the Academy, which I'm a member of, has a great mentoring program. So I was a part of that, but I was like, my only thing was I wanted to make sure it was a young woman that I could, you know, be a mentor to. So I think that's important, because I think that, you know, I had a lot of people that gave me advice, but not one person that was like kind of there for me. And, you know, even with Jamie, the young woman that I was working with, that program was only a year, but we still stay in touch. And she's working on a Disney movie right now. And when things were bad and the movies got shut down, it was nice to be able to be there and say, this is gonna get better, you know, and just to have someone to talk to, I think is important.
And hearing that you're working on a sci-fi movie, as a person who loves fiction, and my profession is, I am a scientist, and as who I am in the science field, and relating that with science fiction and the world of superheroes, as you can see, this is what my life is. I am absolutely excited to see a sci-fi project that you guys are going to be working on, and all the best. And I can't wait for all the other things that you get to do through Stone Quarry. And I'm so happy that, you know, you've managed to, you know, create these awesome universes, multiple universes for everyone to relate to from every walk of life. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We have and just because this was a question that was asked approximately 10 minutes into the stream, and the person is still waiting on it. So Jesse is asking, aside from wishing happy birthday to Zach, he's asking if you guys had a chance to speak to David Ayer on as to about Ayer Cut, or if you even did that. Also that he can wait for Joker and for March 18th.
You know what? I know that Zach has texted back and forth with David, who's been like super supportive, which is great. I mean, I think that's what was really nice. Like Patty and like we all kind of worked together, you know, David and Patty, and, you know, they were off doing their own things. And I think it was important for each movie to have their own personalities and give the directors the ability to, you know, put their vision, because that's how we work. You know, we want the director's vision on the screen. But it's been so nice to be supported, whether it's David or whether it's Patty. Like that's always a nice thing. I don't know that they've specifically talked, I think, about his cut or anything, but I know there had been some like texts early on, you know, back and forth, and or tweeting at each other, it seems these days, right? But
Sorry, we're all we keep seeing Amanda wrangling her little lady there.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Sorry, this is Rory. She's a big fan. Rory, can you say Schneider Cut?
Oh my goodness!
Oh yeah. She said, I was gonna say one thing that the zombie genre is my favorite. Okay, and well, I'm a big Resident Evil fan. Not the movies though, because but seeing this new universe you guys are creating with Army of the Dead and all of that, it's like a fresh take on the genre, and I'm so hyped. I can't even thank you so much for this movie and for this universe. Really,
it's really fun because, listen, I think since Zach has made a zombie movie already, what's the new news? And we haven't revealed that new news yet. But there is some new news, and it's, because listen, he's always pushing the boundaries. And I think just to have, like, how do you we've seen, after Dawn, there have been this like resurgence of all these zombie films. So, we went from the Shamblers to the fast running zombies that he showed. And then, there have been so many iterations in between. So what's the new? I think you want something a little bit new. You want them to evolve a little bit. And I think that's going to be the fun of it. And it does come from Area 51 a little bit, we think.
oh,
I knew that that Facebook event back in 2020 or something happened. I knew that they formed Area 51. I knew it.
It's really cool. It's really cool because our movie takes place after the zombie outbreak and pandemic has happened, right? So they've contained all the zombies in Vegas. They built a wall around Vegas, and the zombies are there. And the government decides that they need to like get rid of the problem once and for all. So they're going to like nuke it. And money's left in the casino. But what's super cool is that the anime is the history of like, where did the pathogen come from? Like, where did it all, how did it happen?
Okay.
And we also get to see, because the team that gets put together was this search and rescue team called Lost Vengeance. And they were going in, once they sealed the city, there were still people stuck in there. So it was their jobs to go in and out. And, also in other areas before they locked it up, they would rescue people from the zombies. So we see, and Zach does these elaborate title sequences, as you guys know. So there's an amazing title sequence that kind of tells the story of what happened. And then we come to our movie, like after it's happened. The fun part is that the anime will show you like the history of that.
I'm ready.
Seriously,
They work really well. Like together, there's just enough connected tissue,
I really can't wait to see
Like a
Zach,
zombie.
especially in the genre of anime. Like to see what you guys can do with anime, like with this and also with the Norse thing that you're doing with Jay Oliva.
Yeah.
So excited.
Well, it's interesting too because Army, we're working with this company, Digital Dimension, and we're using the Unreal Engine. So be able to use the game engine so Zach can lens things. We did mocap, like, but so the fighting could be amped up. So that movie has a little bit more of a 3D feel, but yet it is painterly, like the way the characters, they look hand drawn, but using the game engine as a tool that, I think gives Zach a lot of flexibility in his camera angles. We can change things up and, whereas 2D, you have to like everything storyboarded and everything. So Norse has more of a 2D feel. We're deciding right now whether we're actually going to use the engine or not, or go 2D with it. But the feel is completely more like hand-drawn 2D, so they have very different looks and vibes. But the scripts are the Norse thing has been really fun to, get into, all the lore of what it is, because, I think you think of Thor and everything, but it's a different, it's a different story. And, it's a lot of it is Sigrid's story, which is also, I think really fun.
Very, very excited, especially to hear like more stories that aren't always talked about in media. So that's
And going back to the different genres that I'm seeing you guys work on, and And King Arthur seems like such an amazing fantasy world to like, and I know there's historical element to it too, but you know, even going into fantasy is such an amazing opportunity to see Zach's touch and like you guys working on that and making that into a reality. And yes, how do you feel about
and it has it's unexpected, as you can imagine. It's not what you would expect it to be. The telling is very, I mean, he's writing that now as well as the sci-fi, but he, you know, it's kind of a bit of a Western, you know, and it's so it's like, again, I think taking a story that, you know, we're familiar with, but like reimagining it and making it different. I think that's always what, you know, is interesting to us.
Yeah.
So
You know, I've heard so many people over the past months saying that Zach should do a Western, that this is going to probably cause an uproar online.
Yeah.
So you were saying that the sci-fi is leaning towards the Western feel.
It's definitely intergalactic. It's
An intergalactic Western type thing.
Yeah, it kind of has a Seven Samurai vibe a little bit. Like, it has a lot of influences, but it's, again, I think that's really fun because it's world building, right?
Yeah.
It's you know, creating these different planets and worlds and characters that are on these worlds. Again, with, you know, kind of this, you know, very universal story. So
Yeah.
It's just a message of love from one of the viewers. Yeah, no, like everybody seems to be very excited about the Western part, Debbie.
Yeah, everyone's freaking out in our chat here.
I don't say too much. I mean, it's so early in the development of that one, but
the mirror, you know, honestly, we're just all excited to like see you guys back in the saddle doing more, breaking boundaries. Like we can't wait. We've loved everything you've done so far. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
My Blu-ray collection is mostly Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
And now my brother is just going to be like, okay, there's a pattern here.
Yeah. I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah, no.
I actually wanted to respond to my husband, who we have our channel also. And him and another gentleman who has a channel, his name is Dawson from Nerdy in Many Ways. We actually, as a group, we raised some money to, this last summer, my family and I, not only did we go to Vegas, but we kind of made the trek back home to where we live here in Michigan. And so we stopped off in Metropolis, Illinois, where it is literally Superman. Like, I actually have a picture here of Superman. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, that's I post.
Was that in like Plano? Was that by Plano where we shot? You know, because we shot in that town of Plano, Illinois, right?
No, this is literally Metropolis, Illinois.
Oh, Metropolis.
Yeah. Like, you actually, like, that's a Superman that is full size. And what we did was we actually raised money as a couple of us on YouTube. And so we finally got it. And because there's a walkway where you can have stones, bricks. And it would say, like, this is to this Superman. Well, we kept looking and we're like, where's Zack Snyder's Superman? So we actually have a brick that has his S from Superman. And it says, if you seek his monument, look around you. To the family of Zach and Deborah Snyder, the Poindexter Lounge, and your many associate producers. So my husband and Dawson from Nerdy in Many Ways are actually going to Metropolis this Thursday, and they're going to have this brick put in for you and Zach and everyone else that's been helping. So
that's amazing.
We wanted to have you guys be the first ones to see it, and then we'll definitely put it online so you can see it in the actual ground.
Please.
That's beautiful.
I know when we shot also in Plano, Illinois, they also kept like a little museum there, I think, because, you know, it was a small town where we shot at the fight with Fiora and everything. It was like, we had shut the whole town down for like a couple weeks to do that, and I think they have a little museum there too. But that's amazing. I didn't know about Metropolis.
It's a tiny little town. I mean, like we were able to go through it, in less than a day. But I mean, it's a cute little homey town. They've got like this big, huge green rock that's supposed to be kryptonite. It's got a story on how it landed there. And, but there's a museum that I think they actually redid. So I'm a little jealous that my husband gets to see it. But they have like props from the movies all the way back to, George Reeve, Christopher Reeve, everybody, and it's funny though, because my husband is such a huge Superman fan himself that I'm like, you have about a quarter to half of what's in here. We have a mini Superman museum. Maybe we should start charging admission. But they actually have a museum there that takes quite a while to walk through, which is very cool.
That's cool. That's great.
And they have stuff from BVS in there now too.
Cool. Oh.
So
also, just a reminder to our viewers, this weekend is BVS Comes Home, which is a streaming of Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition in Detroit, Michigan, the place where it was filmed. There are still 6 tickets left. So check out the Twitter at Here for Zach for details on how to purchase that or the amazing t-shirt designed by Butterbar.
Yes.
And this is when I get to say publicly that I get to be too this weekend.
I know, I'm so excited. I don't get to just see you on the computer. I get to physically give you a hug.
I know.
But Lysol first, spray.
Yes,
spray.
yes. We'll have hand sanitizer.
Spray.
A hug through a plastic sheet. It'll be fine.
There you go.
Be responsible, everyone. Wear masks.
I mean, Nana, Lorena, and Fatma here.
Yeah.
Oh, we're with you in spirit.
I'll be with you in spirit too.
Yeah.
I say I'm so excited that everything from Zach this year is coming out on HBO Max simply because I can't leave the house more than twice a week because of my health issues due to the pandemic. So it's like I'm so excited that I get to see the films I want to see instead of waiting and having to watch everyone. Because everyone was seeing Tenet and I was like, yeah, I don't know how that feels. Yeah, I don't see it.
So you know how Zach did this, it's called the Schneider Con, but does he have an official name for it? The Schneider Con? The one
I think it was Director's Cut or something that weekend.
Oh, like the Schneider Con, the weekend of his direct. I think it was was Schneider Con. That was, I think, the official.
No, it was like Arts and Entertainment Director's Cut with Zack Snyder. It was like this long name, and then someone on Twitter said Snyder Con, and everyone just threw out the long name, and that was the
Yeah.
So
no, but I know that was really fun. By the way, that was the last event we did publicly. It feels like in a long time. It's I know everyone's feeling the same thing. It's been a year. It's been hard, right?
So if you have another, when you have another one, what would you like to add on from the conventional cons that we have? If there's anything that you as a female producer would like to do in this event, would you be interested in including something like that in the future convention that you guys could set up? And also I'm more than willing to come to America to do this and to be there for it. But would you ever consider doing a European one in London? I know you guys like Fred and Ginger's, so I think maybe that's also a way for you guys to come to Europe. I mean, it could.
Wink, nudge.
What Fatma's trying to say, we got a good coffee. Would you consider?
I love England. I loved when we lived in England for the year. I think we did it there because we had. Zach was trying to help Art Center. I think the students and getting filmmakers and there are future storytellers and making sure, I think he and I both really value, education, and, he does a lot of work with Art Center and talking to the kids, and he always brings back his movies And he was like, okay, but I bring back my movies in this theater is like not a great place to, you know, if you're trying to inspire the place, that shrine where you go and sit there, you know, it should be a little better. So I think it just made sense for this one to do it at Art Center. But I think doing something international would be amazing. By the way, I'm looking forward to being able to, I have an autoimmune disease too. So we've been super careful during this past year, and, you know, getting a little, I miss traveling and I miss seeing people. And as you said, the hugs, like the Zoom is it's great, but like, I think we're all probably feeling a little like, you know, I mean, grateful that we're healthy, but at the same time, just want to, you know, see people again. I love people. I miss people.
I know, right? Like if I run into one at like the supermarket, they like my friends have been so worried about finally getting me sick that they won't even elbow bump with me. They're like, "Hi," they'll say from like 10 feet away. I'm like, people, I can't believe I actually miss human interaction.
Yeah.
I used to be so introverted to the point where like I could go weeks without talking to a human, but now I'm like, you know what? It'd be really nice to like bump into someone, you know?
You know, I realized approximately like I live in an apartment and I used to share it with one person, but we weren't exactly friends, so we weren't talking much. And then she kind of moved out in September, and I didn't get a new like roommate, or not roommate, housemate sort of, until January. So I realized that with the exception of a 2 weeks of vacation, which I took and went to visit my family in Czech Republic sometime around August, and approximately 5 days I spent at work, I spent since last March, like I was for like 10 months alone in my apartment. And I did not realize how crazy I was going until I got my new housemate. It was just, you know, there's only so much as to loner a person can be, I found out. Just a side.
My mom is tired of me, so.
Right? Like I mean, even just going out to dinner with my friends, or, you know, going to Target, like I really want to go to Target so desperately. Like, not that I need anything from Target, but just like I don't know,
just to walk around. Like, it's like you just want to. I used to just go to a store sometimes to walk around, but now it's like I have to think. I can only go there if I actually need something. I need to be smart about this, and it's like I just miss moseying about.
I miss being able to take my kids to a playground instead of being the jungle gym myself, personally. It's been a weird year. It's a weird year. There have been some great things to come out of it, but I feel like we're all a little weirder for having lived through 2020. What would you, Deb, you said that someone you mentioned you've gotten really good advice, but there hasn't been like one person that you've always just gone to and relied on as a mentor throughout your career. What is some of that great advice that you received along the way?
You know, when I started producing, I was relatively young. Like I felt like I was like the youngest one, yet I was like supposed to be like the voice of reason, the head of the thing. And I remember a producer said to me, you know, a lot of the people, the art directors and copywriters, they were older than me, they had more experience, but yet I was like running the meetings and running the show. And I remember he said to me once, he said, you know, don't be afraid to make a decision. Like, even if it's the wrong one, sometimes you just need to like make a decision. And if it is the wrong one, always own up to it. And I think that like the indecision, especially if you're on a film set or whatever, like, you know, it really taught me to be a leader, because people are looking for that, especially in a producer. That's the expectation of what it is. So I thought that was really great advice. And then the other thing was just never take no for an answer, which, you know, is the advice I give, because I had so many no's or so many things that, you know, it seemed impossible, you know, to be doing what I was doing, or, you know, I got passed over for some promotions and whatever for a variety of reasons, and just keep going and keep, you know, I think we're at a time right now where it's great to be a young filmmaker, because I think before, like when I was coming up, you needed stuff, equipment, you know, we can make things on our phones now. And there's a platform where many people can see them and you can put it out there. So like tell your story. And if, you know, and sometimes it may take a while to get that story told, but like, just don't give up on that. And it sounds cliche, but it's true, because I think a lot of people, like, they just accept the no, and they accept that, or they don't, you know, it's hard too, right? Especially when you put yourself out there creatively, like it feels very personal when you get rejected. And I think that like, it's a hard thing to kind of keep going at it. And by the way, you might need to take a break and come at it in a couple of years. But like, I think the people that succeed are the people that like persevere and like, you know, are just relentless. You kind of have to be relentless, you know?
Yeah, for example, here in Spain, the situation is a bit different, because it's pretty hard to write a show if you are a woman here, or to release a book. And I mean, in other countries, I don't know, but here in Spain especially, it's tiring, and we are still pushing and pushing, but the same people are in charge, and it's like we here need to change a lot in this country. So sometimes I feel, because I'm trying to sell my book, to publish it, and it's like they don't believe in you, but they believe in a main YouTuber like this, and it's tiring.
Yeah.
But we have to keep persevering, right?
You have to do it. And if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will, you know. But I do think that even if there's a bigger story to tell, creating that short that you can, or an impression or something that you can use and get out there. And, you know, I think there's definitely more opportunity now to do that, you know. And I think a lot of times and Zach was going to do this. He was going to teach a class about making films on iPhone, like an iPhone class. And listen, the iPhone is great, but it wasn't about that. It was about that, like, you don't need the fanciest cameras or the cranes or the, you know.
It's accessible.
Yeah.
You can tell whatever story, and the quality is really good, you know, on your phone. You can do so much on your phone, but it makes people just think about the story. It levels the playing field, and you really have to focus, because I think going full circle to what we were talking about early, because it is about the stories that you relate to, that you want to tell, that means something to you, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, I think that for like speaking, I think that Lauren is going to see my perspective a lot. Speaking as someone, you know, who's not like, English is like my third language, you know, when you come from non-English speaking country and you're trying to figure out all these things, and it's like the Hollywood and not just Hollywood, but in a sense, anything that you'd want to do seems even further away, because there is the language barrier and there is all that stuff. And the fact that right now, with the age of internet and with all these YouTube and TikToks and everything, we get the opportunity to learn the language, but also, you know, to kind of put ourselves out there. And I mean, me having the opportunity to stream right now and talk to people like this, you know, it wouldn't have been possible before. And I think I'm really grateful that opportunity is there, even though I'm still asking myself what I'm doing here most of the time, but still.
Aren't we all though? I mean,
yeah, maybe.
But you know, it's also interesting, like our movie, our prequel, which is part in German and part in French and part in English, you know, really, like, I think, you know, at least on Netflix, I've seen a lot of films that are from Brazil or from Germany that are now available that wouldn't be available to me, like television shows, right? Like,
Yeah.
and like, oh, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes they dub them though, and I haven't. A couple of times I didn't even realize it was dubbed till I was like, and I go, oh, wait a minute, I think this is dubbed. Where is this from? But I prefer when they're not dubbed. But I just think never before have we had the access to, you know, this material from different countries. And, you know, it was really fun to be able to, like, Netflix, David Cossey, who's an executive over there who oversees Germany and France and everything, they were like, hey, we want something for our market. And we have this great German actor in the movie. Like, what is there something we can do with him? And it was really fun to create something that has different languages in it. And it really feels global. And I think that's exciting that never before was that something you can do, you know?
Yeah. Well, I have a recommendation for you and Zach.
Yeah.
I think on HBO, you guys can watch 30 Coins.
Oh, 30.
Yeah, it's from a very famous director here in Spain, Alex de la Iglesia, and I think you guys will love it.
Okay,
good. It's like a scary and an adventure in a little town, but it's in your way. It's in like.
Oh, good. I want to see it. I'm watching Dark right now, which I think is German.
Yeah,
Germany, and that's like a perfect example, like of being able to see something, you know. And I think that's great. I think that like having this technology and having it makes the world smaller, but also you get access to artists and creators and filmmakers that you would never have like access before.
Yeah, totally. It's pretty great.
I have a silly question that I've seen all over Twitter since I think it popped up after one of Zach's Grace Randolph interviews. But so what's the story with the beaver wearing the hat behind him?
Oh my God.
I bought him the beaver.
That's awesome.
And for some reason, he has a hat on, but he used to have a crown on. He used to have, there's this great store in Pasadena called Goldbug. If anyone is around here, they're like, and they curate all these local artists. And it's a lot of really curiosities, some of it. I mean, it's some really cool, like unique art from different artists that they curate. And they also have so we saw this beaver with the crown, and I don't know, I just felt like it would go really good. So I got an anniversary present or something.
Did you get it for him because Zach doesn't give a damn?
Well, when my daughter was little, she took the crown, and we can't find. I don't know what happened to the crown. It has a little hat, I think, on it, right?
He has hat, and I think headphones or something.
I've seen
Zach was behind him on one of the interviews, and it was a topic of discussion on Twitter for like
everyone was like, "Yeah, the beaver, Zach."
And we were actually supposed to be talking to you and Zach, and Cole was like, I gotta ask them. And then I forgot. And like half an hour after we spoke to you, she goes, oh my God, I forgot to ask about the beaver.
Because it wasn't this lioness that he got. It was from an antique store. We wouldn't like actually have the game, but it was 80 years old or something, and it was falling apart, and he like rescued it, and refelted it, and it had bugs in it. And I was like, this is gross. I don't know that we want this. And he was like, no, but I feel so bad. Like this.
Oh, that's so cute, but also kind of.
He adopted a taxidermied lion. He adopted a taxidermied lioness. What?
Sold, though. It's falling apart. Yeah, weird.
It was so funny because I swear I've spoken to Zach sitting in that room 1,000 times, but out of nowhere, I guess because he wasn't trying to point the camera away from the Wonder Woman picture anymore. I noticed, what's with the beaver under the Wonder Woman picture? This is weird. I got questions.
By the way, there's a lot of weird stuff in there. There's a lot of like you know, yeah, he likes collecting things. He also, his favorite thing is boxes, right? So he has all these boxes, and I was like, we were going through storage, and I was like, where? It is because Zach doesn't give a damn. That's funny. All these, like, I was like, well, what? There's a box in a box. Like, why does anyone need all these boxes? And he just has this love of like wooden boxes, like more than anyone I know. Little too much information, I guess, but
that's like me and Nana have a horrible problem with buying notebooks. We don't need notebooks all the time, but they're like, this is a pretty notebook, I'm gonna keep it.
Have that problem. I also have that and stationery, a good stationery set. What?
Yeah.
Like, why?
But it's nothing taxable.
clean everything out. I don't like photographs are very sentimental to me. Like I have a lot of photos, either albums or digital, and a lot of like photographic art. Like I love like art. But like things, I don't really like, I kind of don't like, they don't mean, I don't like the clutter. So like Zach has a lot of clutter.
Beaver means nothing to me.
My shit. And
So that's why his office is so full of stuff. That's the only place he can put it.
It's like nesting dolls.
Down to the office. Okay, this is, you know.
Oh my God.
It's a thing. Like you mentioned photos. Cole and I, we like to collect things like a little trinkets kind of stuff from wherever we go, because we enjoy traveling and obviously going to conventions. So it's little things like you save tickets or you save hotel key cards, stuff like that. And I bought myself, speaking of the notebooks, I bought myself a big notebook that I'm going to make a scrapbook approximately 5 years ago when I moved to the States. Actually, that was longer because I moved to the States in 2014. So we're talking 7 years back. I have not opened it. I just put all the things in there, but I didn't actually.
I have a box full of little things for traveling that I have to put in a scrapbook someday. Eventually.
Debbie's got it figured out. Get rid of the stuff, keep the memories.
Keep the photos. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I try and make for the kids, I do a book every year of them, like that I print, and then I have all these except what's happening is like we either get too busy or like this year I was like, okay, we don't really have any, we didn't go anywhere. We didn't really take a lot of photos this year. So then it's like the 2-year book, the 2.5-year book.
Do you like to do them on your own, or do you like put the photos together and have them printed?
I like to organize them, and I like to arrange them, and I like making, like I made my mother want, like I'm always trying to making the photo, but I don't know, because the photos to me, maybe because that's what we do, like it's such a visual thing. But
I take way too many pictures, and I used to get made fun of it for it because I love my dad was a photographer, so he taught me very young. So I take pictures of everything for some reason. But it wasn't until my mom passed 5 years ago when I realized this was such an amazing habit because she never liked pictures being taken, but I have some photos where like she's petting the dog and I can see her hand, or like I can just see a curl of her hair in the background or something. It's like not all of them are good. Some of these pictures are really quite bad, but they mean so much more than like any like pile of stuff I could have.
Yeah, when my dad passed away this year, I just go through. My sister's like, "Where did you get all these?" And I go, "Well, I just took all their photos because they didn't seem to want them." But it was so nice to have and to go through. And I also had all these Super 8 movies that when we had moved offices, they were sitting just like actually Super 8 movies. I had nowhere to like project them. So I finally had them transferred, but I hadn't really watched them. So I kind of brought them when my dad was sick, hoping we'd watch it together, but he was way too sick to do that. But my mom and my sister were there, and we just went through, and some of these things were when we were really young and he was in the Navy, and like to go through all these memories was pretty amazing,
Yeah.
I want to go to, where do I want to go? The first place I want to travel Well, we were supposed to go to Europe when we were going to go visit our friend Eamon in Italy, and I wanted to take the kids to Venice because that's one of the places. So I really would like to. There's so many places. I was really disappointed before the pandemic because it was Zach was supposed to get the key to Sparta because it was the anniversary of the Battle of Thermopylae, and they were doing it was a big anniversary year last August, and all of that got canceled, and they were also running the torch in March with the.
Who do we call? Who do we call to fix this?
Like, did he still get the city? Like, still get it?
I don't know. I would imagine so, but I would have loved to have gone back to Greece and bring the kids there. We were going to do this like kind of a couple week tour there, so I'd like to still do that. So when everything gets back, when it's safe again,
Well, hopefully it's going to be soon.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We almost
So talking about soon. It's currently the 3rd of March in the UK because it's way past midnight, and that means that it's 15 days till it comes out.
Yeah.
What do you think, what have you planned for the 18th, and how do you think you'd feel, and what is the thing that you're looking forward to doing after the 18th?
Taking a deep breath.
Yeah. Because we're so excited and we're like, yes, this is finally happening. And
there are going to be some fan events on, I believe it is the 15th. If I'm wrong, they're going to start making some announcements to try and do some special virtual fan screenings and some charity screenings. And I believe it's on the 13th or the 15th. I'm so sorry. There's been so many dates, but the information will be imminent. So that'll be really exciting to actually, I'm excited. Yeah, for people to see it. I mean, we've been working on it for and it's been years, right?
Yeah.
So are you guys planning to have crack open something nice to drink on the 18th, celebrate, or are you guys going to be glued to social media to see people reacting?
No, listen, I'm sure it'll be a little bit of a combination of it, but because I really hope that people like it. There's been a lot of hard work by so many people that went into this to make this happen. Both on the fan side to make this happen, and also just on all the crew and the artists and all the work that went into it, because it was super challenging to get it done in the amount of time. I mean, normally when you're working on a movie, if you're how many months you're shooting, you're already starting to work on the visual effects. You're starting to figure out what the music is and everything. And we had a sense of the music, but to have 4 hours of score done in this amount of time when you're still cutting, because, we had this version of the movie, but Zach didn't necessarily think that anyone was going to see it except ourselves. So we wanted to work on it a little bit. It was kind of done kind of quickly, so to be doing that while you're finishing final shots and you had to finish a certain amount of shots every week in order to make it to the deadline. I feel like we've been going and going and going, and still are now, because we are still working on the IMAX. We have to go down there. We're working on the black and white version, which that'll get released later. A lot of people have been asking about that, and it was we lived, because the visual effects were in such disarray on the cut that we had. The only way to make it kind of playable, because it was previs and this, and was we made it black and white. So the film for us lived in black and white for so long, right? So that kind of means something. That cut of the movie probably means more personally to us, because that's how we had been seeing the movie and living with it. But also, it's really quite beautiful in black and white. So I think that'll be nice for fans to see that, if that's what people are interested in. So yeah, I think taking a deep breath and enjoying it, enjoying the moment. I don't want to lose everybody's worked so hard. I don't want to lose the moment of that this is here. And I really hope that people, feel that it was made with heart and care and love of these characters, so I think that's all I could hope for, really.
And we're all really excited and very grateful to you for, not only wanting to do this, but like actually doing it. You guys have worked so hard, and we can't wait to see what you guys have pulled off. And I actually think that might be a good place for us to wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're amazing. No, I have one question. Like this
Okay.
is the most ridiculous thing. This is the first thing I thought of to ask you, and we haven't. So I'm going to ask you now. I know that this isn't really how it works, but let's play fantasy Hollywood ball. And if you could pick a director to work with to make a movie of any genre you choose, a director you haven't worked with before, I should specify, a director you haven't worked with before, who would you want to work with in terms of director and movie genre you'd like to make?
Well, listen, I kind of am quite happy working on, because I've worked with a lot of other directors, but I'm happiest when Zach and I are working together for a variety of reasons. And I think, so it's why we haven't expanded so much, because, for two reasons. One is because you get further and further away from the movies, and we really are deeply involved. Even when we had our movie shooting with Matthias was directing in Prague over the pandemic, which was so hard because I would have liked to have been there. I wasn't able to be on set. I was on the phone with them a couple times a week. I was watching dailies every day. Like I was giving comments. We were really, we really developed the script. We were really involved in the casting, and I like that whole thing. That said, if I had to pick someone we hadn't worked with, I really have a great respect for Ava DuVernay. I love everything that she does, and the work that she, takes on. I think is super important, and I love everything from her documentary work to her, television work to her, film work, and I would love, to do something, with her. I would love to do something maybe that's a little bit more female driven, with her.
That would be amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
I would see you guys team up together. I don't think the world's ready for it, but we are.
Yeah. I agree.
That was well put. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Thank you for
coming.
Oh no, we've been loving it. We've been especially the stories. We love that too.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
All right.
It's an honor to meet you.
It was amazing.
Exciting. And I hope you guys really, really like it. I mean, I really do. So I will talk soon. And thank you so much for all your support and good work. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a good night.
Bye.
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 I don't know how I'm supposed to exit this thing, but okay.
The Hotel California stream. Bye.
So amazing.
How you feeling, Amanda?
I mean, everything's frozen, so I'm just hearing people and right now. But I mean, I'm alive. I'm a living a life.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's gonna feel really lame. Tomorrow's gonna feel really lame.
All right, before we sign off, this is where you can find Lorena.
Yeah.
This is where you can find Tiff. This is where you can find dear Amanda.
Hi.
And this is where you can find Fatma. And this is where you can find us, but hopefully you already know that part.
I mean, you're kind of here, so there's always that. But
So we'll
Like
see you
and
guys.
subscribe.
Say
We'll be
there's a
back
chance.
with League of Mayhem will be back in 2 weeks.
yes, just before Zack Snyder's Justice League comes out. So
Yeah.
Yes.
we're gonna have a lot to talk about then, and even more so to talk about in following 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Unless we make some sort of a special, but that's for us to talk about and for you guys to wonder about. Anyway, League of Mayhem sign